Hello everyone, this is Algebra Made Simple. Welcome to today's broadcast. We're going to cover a topic that is near and dear to my heart because of the applications that it has to everything that you do in life, whether it's buying a car, paying your mortgage, getting a discount, doing a retirement. You're never going to escape this topic, and that's dealing with percentages. So if you're watching this video and you have signed up for the Algebra Made Simple 10-week program, welcome, congratulations. You made a great investment towards your future, and you're going to secure future educational opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise because of this decision that you made. You made a good one. So we're going to talk about this topic of percentage. And this is a video skill that's a great video for you to watch when you're about to take this course because of the content, the topic that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about how you can understand percents, get in early, and be able to build wealth for yourself when you understand these foundational truths. It's going to be good. So today's skill set that we're going to cover is finding the whole given the part and percent. Finding the whole given the part and percent. It's a very common question that you see in Algebra 1 and in Algebra 2, but really in life more so than almost anything else. And so I want to talk, before I get into the skill set of it, I want to just give you a basic understanding of what percent is. Percent, and you'll see this symbol. I'm going to put it on my little marker board here. Can you see that? There's the percent sign. You've probably seen it at your favorite clothing store or your video game store because they always have a percentage off or a sale going. Percent by definition means out of 100. So if you ever hear percent, you're wondering, well, what does that really mean? Where did that come from? It means out of 100. So take anything that you can think of. Take we'll start with what my favorite thing to eat is. It's probably a pizza pie. Take a pizza pie. It's usually in a circle, right? And if you get a large pizza pie, they typically cut it up into a certain number of slices, typically about 8 slices, right? And so I'll go ahead and show you that as an example here. I'm going to cut this pizza pie into 8 slices, right? Okay, so 8 slices. If I get 2 slices out of the total of 8 slices and I get to eat those, I eat about this much pizza. I'm going to go ahead and just shade in 2 slices of this pizza so you can see about how much pizza that is. So you see it's not all of the pizza, but it's a nice little, helping of the pizza, right? Well, if somebody else gets a pizza, and let's say it's not a large pizza. Let's say it's like one of those little personal pans you get at Pizza Hut or something. We're going to cut that one up into 8 slices, and we're going to shade in 2 of those slices, right? Well, did you get the same amount of pizza if you get 2 slices from this little small personal pan versus if you got 2 slices here? No, you didn't. And it works that way with percentages. Imagine a pizza, if you will, that's so large that you could cut it up into like 100 slices. That's essentially what percentage is, okay? So if you own a percentage of something at one price, and later that something is sold and you sold it for even more, the percentage that you get allows you to get more and more income. So let's talk about some questions and a skill set that can be very helpful. And I'm going to bring this up on screen. Hopefully everybody can see this. And you'll see a couple questions like this in algebra. And this is going to be very helpful for our discussion on session 1 here. So it says, number 1, it says 30% of what number is 15? That's a common question that you might see, throughout any given year. What 30% is of what number is 15? So the first thing you need to realize when you're doing questions like this is you need to understand anytime you see that percent symbol, 30%, by definition, that means out of 100. So when we do this, we want to put that number that had the percent symbol, and forgive me, it's hard for me to draw on this, so hopefully you can kind of bear with me on that. You always want to put that over the fraction of 100 because that's the definition of percent. What does it mean? 30 out of 100. If you had a really big pizza that was cut up into 100 slices, you would get 30 slices out of the 100 slice pizza, and that's essentially what that means, right? So it says of what number. A lot of times when you see that word of what and you don't know what that what is, that's an indication that that of is talking about the total of whatever it is we're facing. So in algebra, we always want to use something called a variable, which is really just a letter. And we put letters down in algebra when we don't know what a number is yet and we're trying to figure out what that number is. They decided to use letters for that. So we call that a variable, and most of the time you'll see people use the letter or the variable x. So we don't know what that number is, but we do know that it's 30% of what number is 15. So here's the deal. That is that you see there, that's almost like the equal sign. See that number is, or see that word is 15. So what they're basically saying is 30% is 30% and 15 go together. In other words, 15 is 30% of some greater number, if that makes sense. So this is how you'd want to set up a question like this. And I'm going to just go ahead and kind of walk you through how I would do it. At this point, we have what's called a proportion. A proportion essentially is two fractions set equal to one another where you're trying to solve for a part you don't know. And so since we don't know what that number is, 30% of a number is 15. What's that number? We're going to try to solve for it. And we do that by a process called cross multiplication and division. Cross multiplication and division. So what does that mean? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take the numbers diagonal to each other and multiply them. So for example, this first part will be 15 times 100, and we're going to multiply that out. Well, 15 times 100 is basically just the number 15 with two more zeros next to it, so that's 1,500. It's a little trick there for you for free, okay? So that's 1,500, and then we're going to do the other diagonal. We're going to do the other cross. So now we're going to go the other way and go x times 30. Now, how in the world do you multiply a letter times a number? Well, you'll learn in algebra soon that anytime a letter is being multiplied by a what's called a constant or a whole number, 30 in this case, you just put them side by side like this. You put the number part first, and then the letter you attach right next to it. So that technically means 30 times x. We don't know what x equals yet, so all we can do is put 30 and x next to each other, kind of attached at the hip like that, and that tells people looking at it that 30 is being multiplied to a number. We don't know what that number is yet, so that's how it looks. So right now we got 1,500 equals 30x. There's a process in algebra that you do over and over. It's called inverse operations at this point. So what you want to do is, our goal is to get that variable by itself. Right now there's a 30 next to the x, right? We want to get that 30 away from the x on to the other side of the equal sign, and then x will be alone, and then we can have a situation where it'll tell us what x equals. So what are you talking about, Chris? Well, let me tell you. 30x is the same thing as 30 times x. If I want to know what just the x is equal to, I need to do the opposite of what's currently happening. Right now, 30 and x are being multiplied together. That says 30 times x. Well, the opposite of times is what? What's the opposite of multiplication? That's right. It's division. So since it's currently being multiplied, to undo that, I have to do the opposite of what's currently happening. Right now, that says 30 times x. So to undo that, I have to divide by 30, okay? It was being multiplied by 30, the x. Now it's being divided by 30. And the thing with equations is what you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other to keep it in balance. It's kind of like a seesaw. If you take something heavy off one side of the seesaw, you got to take the other, something just as heavy off the other side of the seesaw for the seesaw to stay in balance, for it not to kind of be lopsided. So what happens when you do that? Well, 30 divided by 30 is 1. So you're essentially left with 1x. Usually in math, we don't even put the 1 there. We just say x, you know? Just like saying, hey, I got a marker in my hand, or I have one marker in my hand. I'm saying the same thing. You might as well just say I have a marker in my hand, right? So if I have 1x, I might as well just say I have x. Okay, so 30 divided by 30 is 1, and so that's called 1x. You can put a 1x there if you want to, but we usually, if it's just 1, just leave it as x, okay? And then we're dividing the 15 divided by the 30 right there, okay? Or the 1,500 divided by 30, I should say. And you can kind of do some little tricks here. 15 divided by 3 is really 5, and you cancel out a 0. So that essentially is going to equal 50. That's an ugly looking 5, but that's a 50, okay? And so we have done it. What number, or excuse me, 30% of what number, it says, is 15? Well, that answer is 50. If you took 30% of 50, you would get 15, all right? If you were to cut, what do you say? If you were to cut 50, the number 50, into 30 equal pieces, all right, you'd be left with 15 for each. So that's just kind of one way of looking at it, all right? So this is called finding the whole given the part and given the percentage and the part. So let's take a look at another one right here. Number 2, similar question. It says 40% of what number is 50? Well, I see that percent right there, right? So I already know it's going to have to be over 100. So I like to put 100. 100 is always in the bottom of the fraction. We call that a denominator, if you remember from maybe pre-algebra or your previous years. Okay, we put 100 at the bottom always because it's the total. And 40% means out of 100. So you want to put that 40 where the 100 is, okay? And it says of what number? We don't know what that number is. So in algebra, we put a letter when we don't know what that number is yet. So we like to use x most of the time. That's what you'll see the most. So I'm using x right there. Is 50? That is tells me that 40% right there is equivalent, right, with 50. So I want them both at the top of the fraction. If 40 is at the top of the fraction, whatever it is, equal to, I want it at the top of the fraction as well. That setup is extremely important so that you're doing this appropriately. Then we're doing the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. 50 times 100, well, you can take the number 50, little trick. Anytime you multiply something by 100, you can usually just add 2 zeros to it, and it kind of does it really quickly. So I know that that's 5,000. 50 times 100 is 5,000. And then we're going to cross the other ones. 40 times x. Remember, you set it equal to it, right? Well, we said before, anytime you got a number times a letter, you just put them side by side with the number part first. So 40x is what that equals. Now we got to get x by itself. Well, what's happening between the 40 and the x right now? What's their relationship? Is it addition? Is it subtraction? Is that saying 40 minus x? What does that really mean, 40x? If you said times or multiplication, you are correct. So 40 times x, you have to do the opposite of what currently is happening. Since 40 is being multiplied by x, I have to undo that by doing the opposite of what's happening. 40 divided by 40. So we're going to do it to both sides. What you do on one side, you have to do to the other. Keep it in balance. And so 40 divided by 40 is 1. Usually we just say x if it's going to equal 1. There's not really going to make a difference there. And then we just do our division, right? Okay, so did that in my calculator. Comes out to 125. So we know that x equals 125. For example, 40% of 125 apparently is equal to 50. All right, 40% of 125 is equal to 50. So that's what it is, and that's how you. That's a skill set that you can use to figure out certain types of questions. If you've ever seen the hit TV show, it comes on ABC. It's called Shark Tank, and we're going to look at that as an example for evaluating companies. They usually say stuff like, "Hey, I want $80,000 in exchange for 10% of my company." Well, that's a perfect example as to what we just did. 10% of my company is equal to 80%. So the question is, what is 100% of the company worth? And a lot of times you'll see the billionaires on that show. We'll talk about it on session 1. So hopefully that was of help for you. It's a little video that you can watch maybe 2-3 times, even if you need to, so that we just make the most of our time during the first session. And I think you're going to enjoy the discussion. It's going to get you interested and let you see how the math applies to your potential outcomes and your future. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Have a blessed day. Peace.